These cockazoids are really suffering out here, y'all. The earth is heating up. It is getting hotter and hotter. And the more it heats up, the less these sunscreens they have on the shelf work. But it may be even too dangerous for them to put the sunscreen on. You would think after all these decades and centuries of being burnt by the sun, they would have developed a good sunscreen that would work. Now, these are the same people that are running around talking about their off the chart high IQ, but none of these high IQ people have conquered making a decent sunscreen that's safe and healthy. And on top of that, they don't burn. 75% of sunscreens are toxic. Okay, 75% of the ones they have on the shelves are toxic. All right. So, more than 2 million Americans are diagnosed with skin cancer every year. And even though more and more people are using sunscreen each year, the incidence of skin cancer continues to climb worldwide. So not only are you putting something toxic on your skin, it is completely ineffective in fighting skin cancer. I'm going to need the high IQ people to step up and make something decent for the cockazoid community. I don't know why y'all are waiting so long. You know what the sun is like. There should be no delay in developing this. It's that time of the year where we all start enjoying the weather outside. But did you know that 4 different studies conducted in the 1990s indicated a higher risk of malignant melanoma among individuals who use the most sunscreen? Why don't y'all just take the cue from animals? Like rhinoceros. They usually mud their bodies up before they get out of the water and walk around so they don't get burnt. Maybe you cockazoids just need to mud up. Get yourself all mud up because that works for the animals. So, I mean, you are hybrids. It may actually work for you. Several years ago, when I started revealing the dangers of sunscreen, many people were surprised. But over the past 5 years, more research is starting to come out about the dangers of sunscreen. That is pretty bad. And the articles are out here, ladies and gentlemen. They are out here. Here's another one. Some of the most toxic sunscreens and safer options. Now, it says 2/3 of the sunscreens analyzed by the Environmental Working Group did not work well or contain potentially hazardous ingredients. So they're rubbing this stuff on them for nothing. And on top of that, it's not even working and it's toxic. And the people that are wearing it get the most skin cancer, most of the melanomas. Woo, y'all got some problems. Top selling sunscreen brands as Neutrogena, Rite Aid, Walgreens, Up and Up, Coppertone were among those that made the most toxic list. The most toxic sunscreens typically contain the hormone disrupting chemical oxybenzone, synthetic fragrance, and retinol palmitate, which most pose cancer concern. Damn, y'all. Okay, don't come back around Black people talking all this high IQ stuff. You have been in America since the early 1600s. This is 2017 and you still have not conquered a decent sunscreen yet. No, you don't have a high IQ. Use sunscreen only after you've, listened to this, maxed out your daily vitamin D production. In other words, their supplement that they take every day, vitamin D. See, Black people, we don't need to take vitamin D. You get it instantly when you walk in the sun. These folks, the only reason why vitamin D supplements are on the shelves is because they need it. They do not get vitamin D from the sun. If you get burnt up by the sun, you are not getting any value from the sun at all. And even then, consider using shade or clothing to block the sun. So he's telling them to put the sunscreen on top of putting the sunscreen on, use some shade. All right, so go stand in the shade and make sure you have clothing to cover your body so that the sun don't burn you. EWG's safer sunscreen tend to be use zinc and titanium-based minerals ingredients, which block the sun's rays without penetrating your skin, in lieu of chemical ingredients. So, so the majority of the sunscreen out there that the average person is using, average Caucasoid is using, is toxic. But yet they're trying to encourage Black people to use it. Black people don't touch that stuff. If it's too toxic for them, then we definitely don't need it. We are melanated. We don't need their sunscreen. So don't let them con you into believing that. Now, look at this article from ABC News. Excuse me while I slather my children with this toxic death cream. So many of these people already know the sunscreen is toxic. And the UV rays are getting stronger because this earth is heating up. This is why there's so much talk about, the climate and global warming and everything, because it's really happening. And you can see it's happening. I can tell you, I've been out a few times and I have walked right in the path of many of these burnt red looking Caucasoids walking around. Okay. They can't really avoid being burnt by the sun. So either they're going to get burnt by the sun or they're going to put this cream on and run the risk of getting skin cancer, because most of the people that wear the sunscreens are the ones with the skin cancer and a melanoma. All right, we're going to listen to this video. And this is a Caucasoid man that is explaining how sunscreen kills.
Another thing I wanted to touch on, down in Australia, large sections of the Great Barrier Reef. You know what, guys? That's UV. Here's another thing, sunburned whales. Ozone hole could be the culprit. Well, probably, but it's UVB. How the coral depends on algae to survive, and the algae are leaving the coral. They don't like the coral anymore because the coral is vibrating at a different frequency because of the UV, and it would be UVB. It's penetrating the water and it's bleaching like everything else is bleaching. If it's not bleaching it, it's burning it. I'm going to show you some pictures here in a few minutes that are mind-blowing. This talks about large sections of the Australia Great Barrier Reef is now dead. Well, check this out. Fish are getting skin cancer down at Australia's Great Barrier Reef from UV radiation. Well, why are we still talking about the warm waters damaging the coral and not connecting the dots that it's got to be the UV if it's
And not only is the UV destroying the coral reefs, but also sunscreen lotion, which we're going to get into now. Sunscreen is a dangerous, dangerous product, including nanoparticulate matters that are getting into the coral reefs and helping to destroy them as well. And if the sunscreen is that powerful that it can get down and change the effects of the mighty coral reefs, what do you think it's doing to our children when they lather with it all the time and the mothers and fathers are adamant about lathering them up every time they go outside? They're breathing in, they're inhaling, they're ingesting, it's going through their blood and their blood-brain barriers and the nanoparticulate matter. Let's get into it more. Sunscreens are dangerous, folks. Please, please listen. Included in sunscreens, which very few know about, are nanoparticulate matters. Nanoparticulates are as small or smaller than 1/80,000th of the width of a hair. They can be manipulated and organized, and they are totally cost efficient because they can be self-replicating, but they are totally unregulated by the FDA and the EPA. They include titanium dioxide and zinc oxide. Nanoparticulate matter is a trillion-dollar business. It is totally under the radar of the consumer, but it is in so many products because it's, like I said, cheap to produce and cheap to replicate. So cost efficiency is amazing. So here's from the Environmental Working Group, nanoparticulates in sunscreens. Here's the positive. They provide strong protection with few health concerns. Zinc oxide offers good protection from UVA rays, doesn't talk about UVB. Titanium oxide less so, but better than most other active ingredients. Nanoparticulates in American sunscreens are either titanium dioxide or zinc dioxide. So here we go, telling you the shape and size of particulars affect sun protection. Nanoparticulates in sunscreens don't penetrate the skin. That's what the headline reads, but you read down here, it says, well, neither study could determine if zinc nanoparticles penetrated the skin. See how they mislead you? Here's another one. It is unlikely that nanoparticulates in sunscreen can cause skin damage when energized by the sun. However, the next line says zinc oxide are photocatalysts, meaning that when they are exposed to UV radiation, they can form free radicals that damage surrounding cells. Information from suppliers suggests that U.S. sunscreen formulators generally employ the appropriate forms of zinc oxide and titanium dioxide in their products. Recent studies in other countries indicate that manufacturers do not always use sunscreen-grade minerals. Since manufacturers are not required to make this information public, the extent of these problems is difficult to gauge. Nanoparticulates could cause lung damage when inhaled. The International Agency for Research on Carcinogens has classified titanium dioxide as a possible carcinogen when inhaled in high doses. Insoluble nanoparticulates that penetrate skin or lung tissue can cause extensive organ damage. Nanoparticulates in lip sunscreens can be swallowed and might damage the gastrointestinal tract, although there are no studies to suggest that consumers swallow enough zinc oxide or titanium dioxide to pose a concern. Do current federal screening regulations ensure the safety and effectiveness of sunscreen minerals? No. The U.S. government has not enacted regulations, guidelines, or recommendations on particular characteristics that would maximize sun protection and minimize health risk. FDA sunscreen rules assume that any type of titanium dioxide or zinc oxide can be safely used in sunscreens. It's unbelievable. This is such a double standard they're talking here. EWG remains deeply concerned about the general lack of oversight of nanotechnology and associated risks to consumers, people with workplace exposures, and the environment. Thanks for nothing. Cover up your children, folks. Don't put on the sunscreen. They do need vitamin D. They do need to get out in the sun, but please help minimize their exposure. They're the greatest risk.
What we know about skin cancer risk is sunburns under the age of 10 can portend a large increase in risk for melanoma.
So this is from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. This is June 2nd, 2015, melanoma incidence and mortality trends, 1982 to 2030. What it says is melanoma incident rates have continued to increase and risk behaviors remain high. It's responsible for the most skin cancer deaths. Results. Incident rates are projected to increase for white males and females through 2019, and beyond. Skin cancer is the most common form of cancer in the United States. Melanoma is responsible for the most cancer deaths. An individual dying from melanoma loses an average of 20 and a half years of potential life. Treatments cost about $3.3 billion annually. That's going to go up, making more bank for big pharma. Melanoma is the 5th most common cancer for men and 7th most common for women. More than 90% of melanoma cases in the United States are attributed to skin cell damage from ultraviolet radiation exposure. The Guide to Community Preventative recommends multi-component community-wide programs and educational, environmental, and policy interventions based on evidence that they increase UV protective behaviors, decrease skin damage that can develop into melanoma by increasing the availability of protective clothing and hats and scheduling activities before or after midday hours.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it from the horse's mouth. They are pretty much doomed. If you can imagine, if this earth ever heat up and we stop having winters and it was summer-like temperature all year round, these people will be finished. Okay, you would definitely have a mass die-off. You're talking about sunscreen that's really useless and it does not work, and they got to keep reapplying it all day long. Plus, on top of that, it's toxic. More people that wear it have skin cancer. The only thing they really need to do is go back to those caves. I'm not trying to be smart, but those caves were probably the perfect place for their type of skin, because anywhere else on this earth, it's really bad for them. It's really bad. I didn't realize how bad it was until I started researching the sunscreen and seeing the majority of it is toxic, ladies and gentlemen. Please tell me what you think of this video. Leave your comments and subscribe. And if you can, please donate to my channel. Peace, family.